day. My name is Evgeny Mishkov. In this video I would like to tell you about the events which made me interested in such little known things as ghosts and UFO, but also from time to time to start thinking about the purpose of life and the universe. I will tell you right now that I did find the answers to all of my questions when I was 20 years old. But of that experience and the purpose of the universe I will be talking in the next video, as it's going to be rather long. This video might be considered as a preface. I was 5 years old. One summer day, me, my friend, and his grandmother were sitting on a bench near my rural village house. I remember how I heard the wooden gate to our house creak open to the left from us. I thought that my mother was coming out, since there was no one else in the house except her and myself. But when I turned my head in the direction of the sound, I saw a bright yellowish mass, the size of a person, dart behind our house. Immediately I ran to the gate, but there was no one there. My mother was washing the dishes, and she didn't see anyone. My friend and his grandmother never saw anyone too, because they never turned their heads to see the reason for the creaking of the gate. I also remember that they were skeptical about my account of what I had seen. That was the first time in my life when I learned that people tend not to believe in the things they didn't experience personally, and also that they might consider those people who did strange. I would like to emphasize that two of my senses played a role in this experience: hearing and then sight. Several years later, I woke up in the middle of the night in our village house. After a little while, I heard the wooden planks in the kitchen creak. The frequency and direction of the sounds indicated that a grown-up person was walking towards the terrace and also our room. I thought that my mother was outside and now was returning back into the house. But when I turned to look at the door, I realized that she was sleeping in her bed. There was no one else in the house who could have walked in the kitchen. I have to add that quite often, when I was repairing my bicycle on the porch, I would feel like someone is staring at me from the terrace. But I saw nobody whenever I looked to see if there was someone there. I remember how many years later I came to the terrace and found that the light had been turned on. I don't remember ever turning it on that evening. During another instance, something hit the door to the terrace twice when I was sleeping there. It was a loud bang. Another curious thing to happen to me in the terrace was when I was in bed trying to fall asleep. I remember clearly how a cold mass passed near my face. At first, I thought, or at least wanted to think, that it was just a draft. Now that I think about it, there was absolutely no reason for such a draft to occur. Also, drafts don't just casually pass near you while being confined in a small volume of space, like a small sphere the size of a basketball. Here I have to tell about certain events, which happened less than a year ago when I was 30 years old. All of them occurred in my father's apartment after his death. He lived there for almost his entire life. The first thing I noticed was the analog clock, which stood on the refrigerator. The clock had stopped and showed the exact time my father died, 1 p.m. I later learned that it's a known phenomenon for clocks to stop when the person who used them dies. The next day I was removing the old plate in the kitchen. Having turned my head to the left in the direction of the hallway, I saw how a white translucent figure was looking at me and immediately stepped to the right and disappeared behind the wall. There was no one else in the apartment but me. Some time later, my mother and I were cleaning up in the largest room of the apartment. After a while, I saw with my peripheral vision how something white was walking at my right side. It was headed towards the balcony. At first, I thought it was my mother, but when I turned to face the moving shape, I realized that my mother was cleaning something near the wall, and she had her back turned to the balcony. She definitely wasn't the white mass, which passed in several centimeters from me. The other day I was alone in my father's apartment. When I finished my work I'd been doing there, it was already dusk. I had to turn the lights in the hallway as well as in the small room, where I changed into clean clothes. I was about to leave when I saw with my peripheral vision something moving across the hallway. Something black and small, about the size of a cat. At first I did actually think that it was a neighbor's cat, but when I turned my head to look directly at it, I saw a formless dark shape, which quickly darted and disappeared behind the door. The last episode in that apartment happened several months after my father's death. I admit that even so it was many years since I actually learned about the mortality of our soul and the process of reincarnation. I didn't take his death very well. There are reasons for that, of course, of which I will not speak here. So while being in his apartment, the emotions started to overwhelm me again. I was in the hallway, in the exact place where I saw the black mass several months earlier, when I felt how something cold touches my left hand. I want to emphasize that only part of my bare hand felt the cold, not the whole hand. That could not have been a draft. I think I need to briefly say here that our soul, or astral body, is composed of about 4 billion trillion electrons. After the death of the physical body, 81% of the electrons of the astral body, along with the intelligence, return to its higher self, the light at the end of the tunnel, and awaits for a new reincarnation. And the remaining 19% of the electrons rejoin the electrons of the universe. Those 19% of the electrons can be used by nature to create a new human body, animal, or tree. But before being utilized by nature, those electrons can be vacant. Having memory, they can haunt places which they knew while being a part of a living human body. All those things that I saw in my father's apartment were those electrons of the universe, which had not yet been utilized by nature. I will talk in more detail about the soul in the next video. When we were kids, my friend and I dug the goat house in the back of our village. It was in about 60 meters away from my house. Sometime later, I was in Moscow. My mother and I were going to go to our village home for a weekend, but our alarm clock had stopped working in the evening. Back then, I loved very much staying in the village, and so I wished that I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I woke up feeling as if someone purposely awoken me. The digital clock on the VHS player showed exactly 5 a.m. That was an unusual experience. I did find out the reason for such an awakening without any alarm clocks at the same time when I found the information about the purpose of the universe. I will be speaking about that in more detail in the next video. So we were able to go to our village early in the morning. The day was cloudy and it was drizzling most of the time. Of all my friends, only one came for the weekend. That night I had a dream which showed the following. Night. I go to the direction of our dugout house. I see how smoke is coming out of the chimney. For some reason, instead of going to the main and only door of the dugout house, I go to the chimney's opening, look down, and see how a thin, human-like hand, completely covered in black hair, shuffles firewood in our fireplace with a stick. In my mind, I had a word appear. Werewolf. I woke up. The day was sullen with drizzling rain. During breakfast, my uncle came to visit us on 11 a.m. bus. Upon entering the kitchen, he said that he saw some smoke coming out from our dugout house. I thought that my friend was there. We were about 10 years old. Having finished eating, I went to the dugout house. When I entered it, I saw smoldering cinders in the fireplace. There was nobody inside. And that was when I remembered the dream I had that night. When I came to call my friend to go out, she was still sleeping, and, obviously, she would never have come alone to the dugout house, especially in the rain. Girls have more important and interesting things to do. The village itself is 25 kilometers away from the nearest town and about 1 kilometer away from the highway. Chances that a homeless person somehow found our dugout house are non-existent, because there are no homeless people in the villages. Furthermore, the dugout house was hidden by high grass from the backyard sand road where almost no one ever walks or drives. It still remains a mystery who was in our dugout house that night. Just as it remains a mystery why in my dream I saw someone with a hand completely covered in black hair, or why I even had a dream about something that, in a way, actually happened, perhaps even in the same time as I was dreaming. And was it even a dream? The next episode also happened in the village. It was a cloudless summer day. Me and my 5 friends were near my house. Me and 2 others were building a chin-up bar. We had to dig out holes in the ground for the poles. While we were on it, we dug out a stone of brown color and oval shape. It was somewhat surprising to see on that rock contrast somewhat resembling a human face. Having dug a little further, we found another rock of black color. It was elongated and its length was about the same as the diameter of the first brown rock, about 15 centimeters. We put the rocks on the bench and continued digging. Soon after, we noticed how a cloud of brown-gray color began to cover the whole sky from the south to the north. It was unusual, but we started to worry only when a thin black cloud appeared in the southern sky. It was moving fast to the north and towards us. That cloud stretched from the east to the west, and it was very thin in its width. So it was as if dividing the now completely cloudy sky into two halves. It became windy. We realized that the stones we dug out were somehow responsible for the appearance of the clouds, however strange that might sound. So we decided it would be best to bury them back under the ground. Both of the clouds very quickly vanished. What makes this event unique is that I was not alone to experience it, and we all saw the same phenomenon and came to the exact same conclusion. Those stones are still buried under the ground not far from my village home. My previous experiences might be hard to prove, but in this case it's quite possible to dig those rocks out when it's not cloudy and see what's going to happen. This unusual event happened when I was in my Moscow apartment. It was night, darkness. I went to bed after a long day, but I couldn't fall asleep for some considerable time. I don't exactly remember why, but I decided to slightly hit the pillow with my head 3 times. Everything was as it should have been after the first 2 hits. But when I hit the pillow for the 3rd time and raised my head, it was already day. The sun is shining high in the sky, people are busily walking in the street. That is, from my perspective, the night changed into day in just a fraction of a second, during which I was with my face in the pillow. I should note that I didn't want to sleep anymore and was full of strings. I was able to find only one story depicting the same experience I had that night. Here it is. We lost 10 hours. My friend and I were about 14 or 15. She had a Ouija board that we used quite often. I always thought she was pushing it for the fun factor. I never took it seriously. One night we started, and it was about 9 p.m. We started getting very strange sayings. None of them I can remember 27 years later, and we got a name. Also the name I have forgotten over the years, it said he was from Malaysia. He was here to protect us. I do remember that much. The next thing we know it's 7 a.m. It was like we blinked and the sun was up. It was very freaky. We lost 10 hours of our life. Neither of us remember anything about it. We were just sitting there at the table, staring at each other like, what the fuck happened? Too bad we didn't have a third person there to tell us. She would never use it again. I did. But I never had that happen again. What's interesting in their case, aside from the lost time, is that they were sitting motionless during all those hours. They didn't lose their balance in their seats. Neither their eyes nor head ever changed their positions. It should also be noted that this time was happened to 2 girls simultaneously in the same place. The girls are not related, which should leave out any physical reasons for such a time loss to occur. The last case I want to talk to you about happened when I was 18 years old. Back then I began to meditate in order to get rid of stupor, or stuttering as it's called in modern medicine. I learned that there is no such disease as stuttering from Snezhko Roman Alexeyevic's website, but that's a story for another video. When I was still considering to start meditating, I was somewhat skeptical about the whole idea, and even slightly laughed at myself. But when I actually tried it, the results I got proved that meditation is a very serious and powerful tool. Meditation, or to be more precise, concentration on surrounding sounds and breathing, really helped me not only with stupor, but also made me a very happy and joyful person, despite some very serious problems I had back then. There was one chilly day during which I caught a cold. I had all the symptoms: a sore throat, slight fever, runny nose and sneezing. I knew that I would be sick for about a week. It had always been this way whenever I would catch a cold. My mood would always become brought down while being ill too, for obvious reasons. Thanks to meditation, I started to live here and now, and I was enjoying every moment of my life. I didn't want to become depressed again. It's somewhat hard for me to describe my thought process in that moment. But here's the general idea. I decided that I would continue being a happy person and would be happy to live even with bad feelings that accompany any illness. There's a reason why I put the word bad in inverted commas. I really started to see the illness that way. I realized in that moment that in illness, or the feelings we have when a virus is present in our bodies, are no more than a feedback of our physical body with our consciousness, which is required in order for us to know that we have a virus inside of our bodies. Those feelings are neither bad nor good. They are just data, and therefore there is no reason to ruin your mood because of an illness. In that moment, I actually made a successful effort to inspire myself and really start living in the mental state which I just tried to describe to you. And then my cold was instantly cured. The only reminder that I actually had been ill just a second ago was an unusual feeling in my throat, which lasted for about a day, and which I'd never experienced before. The best I can describe it is the feeling of a throat which had been instantly cured after being sore. So, I was no longer ill, but the effects the disease had on the cells of my throat remained, if that makes sense to you. I think that I need to say that I was cured by my higher self. Higher self is the light at the end of the tunnel. Thanks for watching. In my next video, I will be speaking about the purpose of the universe and our role in it.